Hello, good people of Earth. It is summer solstice, and I wanted to continue our discussion on the shamanic work that I started in the previous videos. I have come up with a few tips and prerequisites for being able to complete this work for yourself. There are a couple things that shamanic work requires, and one of them is accepting that the universe is on your side. The second thing is a strong desire for change. The third is power of concentration. And the fourth is the ability to relax in the visualization and trust the process. So I'll go into each of these in some detail and give you some tips so that you may be able to develop these skills and to grow in your personal relationship with the forces that are within you and around you. So the first one is embracing universal cooperation. This means you have to stop viewing the world as your enemy and releasing the feeling that it's me versus the rest of the world. Recognizing that the consciousness that animates all living beings is the same consciousness that lives inside of you. So the same consciousness within an insect, a plant, within the people around you, within the planets of the solar system, it's all one consciousness. And therefore, there are no enemies. And at the same time, you know that being connected to this consciousness allows you infinite access to information and the ability to channel or draw the energies, the thoughts, the feelings, the expressions through the universal web and bring them into your experience. So in order to do that, you may have to go through the process of feeling the resistance within yourself and making the decision to release that resistance. As you sit quietly in meditation, you may recognize thoughts or feelings coming up. And maybe these feelings are anger or frustration at this person or another. And then you may choose to let go of that anger and say to yourself, it's okay, I'm not the victim. This person is allowed to feel the way they feel. And releasing and letting go and forgiving any grudges that you may have when it comes to relationships. And even relationships with people you do not know. Just entering a state of openness and allowing other people to be who they are, recognizing that they are in the state of universal consciousness, and knowing that their expression at this moment is only a stepping stone in their path. So whatever somebody believes that may trigger you, recognize this is a stepping stone, that their beliefs are always changing, just like your beliefs are always changing. And just learning to be okay with allowing people to have a differing belief system, trusting that the universe has its own path for each individual being on the planet and in the universe. So also recognizing if you are currently struggling with very challenging experiences, that even most difficult experiences are here for your growth. So always teach yourself to look for the silver lining in whatever challenges you may be going through. Always ask, what is the lesson, or what is the most positive thing that I can grow into through this challenge? For example, your work contract may be expiring and you feel nervous about not having work in a short period of time. Asking yourself, maybe there's an opportunity for me to upgrade or to slightly change direction, and what would bring me more inspiration in my life, and how could I channel that into a different work environment? Or for example, your lease is coming to an end, or your house has been flooded. Maybe asking yourself, how can I positively influence my reality and transform my surroundings and improve how I feel, and start to visualize the positive qualities and not dwell too much in the fear of the unknown, but instead pull in the known aspects from your heart, basically generating that inner knowing of what you need, and allowing yourself to be uplifted and taking those ideas as inspiration for expansion. Number 2 is strong desire for change. So this requires humbling your ego and pride, and recognizing that you need help or that you need everything to change. And that means being willing to release your attachments to the pain and the struggle, and your attachments to any kind of victim consciousness. Wholeheartedly reaching out for the goal. For example, you want to eliminate addiction. So most of us have to hit rock bottom or have to have a very negative experience in order to cultivate enough internal willpower and enough desire to affect the change. You have to be at a point where you've said, enough is enough. I can't go on unless something changes. I cannot live life this way. That kind of strong desire to shed the negative pattern in your life. Number 3 is the power of concentration. Now, you will need this in order to journey into yourself and in order to track the energy as it's being unfolded, unwound, and processed in your consciousness. So the power of concentration is one of the most underscored skills, for example, in Buddhist practices. And I say concentration and attention is a skill because it is literally a muscle that needs to be developed. I don't believe in too many diagnoses or labels because that tends to pin us down to a particular reality. And the same thing goes for attention deficit. Attention is a muscle that can be built up. And so we get to a state of attention deficit, and many mothers I know are going through this because you are physically unable to focus or complete a task without being interrupted. So those of us with small children are constantly, every couple minutes, interrupted in our process, okay? And that becomes a conditioned response. So the cure for that is to be able to carve out a time and practice focusing on one task, for example, without looking at your phone or without going away to get a cup of coffee. Setting a time period for yourself to either work, meditate, use breathing techniques, exercise, write. Any number of activities can be used to further increase your power of concentration and attention, as long as you don't allow yourself to deviate your mind from the task, staying fully focused, present, and aware until your timer goes off. The Buddhist monks would often sit and stare at a single point on the wall or the center of a gong for an hour or more, practicing their focus of concentration and directing their mind not to deviate from that single spot throughout the practice. You can also use this activity or this meditation to help you with your power of concentration. One of my favorite things is using mantras. If the mantra is in another language or complicated enough that it requires concentration and focus not to mess it up, that is a good practice for your power of attention. You will notice when you lose focus while repeating a mantra, if your words start slipping up because your mind has diverted to another thought, and then you start forgetting the words of the mantra and you bring yourself back. It is a great tool because it focuses your verbal skills, your mental skills, and your breathing skills into one single focus. So mantras are amazing for many, many reasons, and they have benefits beyond the power of concentration, but I won't go into that within this talk. And so the fourth and final skill that I would recommend for shamanic work is the ability to surrender and trust the process, to trust what you see in your visualization, and focus on feelings and emotions rather than the mental conditions that may arise. For example, when I was doing a soul retrieval piece for myself, it took a while for me to find the soul contract. It actually took probably 4 journeys before one of my guides allowed me to step in. And then I was taken through many different worlds. And then I was taken into the world of nature and led by a fairy guide into a field of flowers. And they showed up as different flowers, right? So one of them was wilted and it was being shown to me. And so I asked, what does this mean? And what I meant was there's a piece of myself that did not feel loved or nourished. And so I changed that contract, and then the flower started blossoming again. And then another flower showed up, and that flower had petals that some of them were fully formed, and then some of them were underdeveloped and malformed. And I asked, what is the message of this? And what I felt inside was it was limited in its growth. So aspects of it were restricted and not allowed to develop as they should be or as they could be. And so I rewrote that contract. And then the flower was able to grow. So I was able to use that information in order to extrapolate the meaning and the significance, the message from what I was seeing. And then channeling my consciousness to identify the limiting belief that was restricting the growth of this flower or the growth of this aspect of myself. And then changing that allowed me to rewrite that program. So that's just an example of working with the images that you receive, that you want to focus on qualities and feelings, staying in the state of relaxation, openness, and when you are presented with something, being able to inquire and ask and wait for the feeling to tell you. Your body will tell you the message, even if your mind initially is unable to bring you a conclusive image or a conclusive diagnosis, if you want to call it that. All right, so in order to exercise that muscle, I highly recommend doing visualization exercises. There are tons of guided visualization meditations, and I may even put some up on this channel. But practicing your imagination will allow you to trust what you see. The way I like to put it is, we start the shamanic work with a journey into your imagination, which then becomes taken over by source energy. And your imagination bridges the physical world and the spirit world. And eventually spirit receives that input and then unfolds the experience and the meaning. It draws you in. So you have to make the first input, you have to make the first attempt to reach out to source for assistance. And then the universe will receive that, and then you will co-create, you will be absorbed into the experience of the spirit world. And from that point, you have to just allow it to unfold without judgment, without questioning, am I making this up? So those are my tips for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful first day of summer. And if you have questions or comments, feel free to comment below, and please share this with your friends who are into spirituality, self-development, and personal growth. All right, guys, keep it real. Bye.